Good morning. Welcome to Lecture 22 of our series on prosody. Continuing the topic of how prosody serves pragmatic functions and elaborating the notion of prosodic constructions. This is the mechanism by which prosody serves many important functions, positive and negative feelings, managing who has the turn, marking topic shifts, and so on. In the last lecture, we introduced the key idea, namely that prosodic constructions generally involve multiple prosodic streams: the pitch stream, the intensity stream, lengthening, reduction, and that the various features for each construction appear in specific temporal configurations. In this lecture, we'll cover 5 additional properties, some of which contrast strongly with the more familiar ways that sound conveys meaning in language. We'll start by talking about their gradient nature. So the contrast here is with categorical functions of language, such as the plural s in English. So consider 1 cupcake versus 2 cupcakes. The s on the end is categorical. It's binary, it's either present or absent. Logically, if my lunch was more than 1 but less than 2, I could indicate that with half an s. It's halfway between singular and plural, but no, English does not allow that. The plural morpheme s is categorical. Prosody is sometimes like that too. You can't have a tone halfway between tone 3 and tone 4 and expect to mean anything. But pragmatics-related prosody is generally not categorical. Here's an example, the positive assessment construction again. If you're pleased, but not hugely pleased, you can tone down the prosody a little bit. You can go halfway between neutral and positive, or 20%, or 40%, or whatever you like. Here's a little experiment. Out of the 2 following clips, which sounds more positive?
Good job. Good job.
Yeah, the second one, right. Here's 2 more, same thing.
Good job. Good job.
Okay, again, it's the second one. Almost everybody hears these distinctions. Many people even finer-grained distinctions. In general, the prosody of pragmatic functions is often gradient in nature. All right, on to our third point. The alignment of prosody to words is often flexible. So I'll illustrate with a minor third construction. As we saw in the last lecture, this is often used to elicit responses. If I say, hello everyone, good morning, I can get the class to respond. I can cue them to respond back cheerfully, hopefully. In this case, the pitch down step falls between good and morning, but it could be different. So if we move the alignment slightly so the word morning is in the hot spot, then the down step can come between the 2 syllables of morning. And there's usually an up step lead in. So now we get, hello everyone, good morning. Same construction, same pragmatic force, different alignment. So pragmatics-related prosody is often semi-autonomous in this respect. We can have some more fun with this construction. If we want to call someone who has only 1 syllable in their name, like John, we can either split that 1 syllable into 2, John, or we can give them a nickname, like Johnny. The details of how alignment works between prosodic constructions and words are very complex. Researchers are still working out the details, but our general point is that the alignment with words is often flexible. Moving on to point 4. Prosodic constructions are direct mappings between form and function. So far we focused on their form. Oh, and that's in contrast to a symbol-mediated view. All right. If we focus on the form, like this one, perhaps remember, this is the form that we've already seen. But we should really talk in terms of constructions, a pairing of a meaning and a form. Together that constitutes a construction. Here's another example. The mapping between this configuration of properties and a meaning of admiration. There's another construction. It sounds like this.
Aww.
Okay. Unlike our previous example, this conveys a very specific meaning, one of sort of like respectfully distanced admiration. Typically this reassures the mother that although her baby is incredibly cute, you're not going to do anything to wake it up. There's also a lexical constraint. It only comes with the word awe, and contextual constraints. You can only use this if you're talking about a sleeping baby, or a picture of a baby, or a puppy or kitten, something of that nature. And usually if both the speaker and the audience are female. All right, so there's a lot of things packed into constructions, but we'll just focus on a form-function mapping. As a side note, the meanings of prosodic constructions vary from the very specific, like "aw," to the more general, like the positive assessment construction, "good job," to the very vague, like the minor third construction, which we saw earlier. That construction serves very generally to cue some kind of obvious action. When I say, good morning, or excuse me, to get you to move aside, or
Knock knock.
knock knock, to get you to join into the routine. Okay, so getting back to our main point, every construction is a mapping from some set of speech signals to some mental representations or activities. The meaning contributed by one construction gets combined with everything else complexly, but each construction is a direct mapping. This contrasts with the mediated mappings that also exist in language. So for example, when I convey the concept of a tree by saying the word tree, there is a mapping from the sequence of phonemes to the concept. And below that, there's another set of mappings that connect from the sound to each of those phonemes. Using an intermediate representation, t, e, that is to say the sequence of phonemes as the key to analysis is very helpful. Really, the invention of the International Phonetic Alphabet is one of the great accomplishments of mankind. People have proposed similar sequence of symbols as the intermediate representation for prosody, but in general, for pragmatics-related prosody, direct mappings seem to be descriptively more accurate and more efficient. Opinions still differ on this. I think the jury is still out, but I think that's where we are today. Okay, moving on to the fifth interesting thing about prosodic constructions. They can be joint constructions. In dialogue, people coordinate. Consider the word really in this example. Here, speaker B is using the word really as a back channel.
I saw Boondock Saints before it was even in America.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was released in Canada.
Okay, so the really, it's got that pitch upswing at the end, but most of its prosody is governed by the typical back channel pattern, so it's kind of lengthened and only modestly loud. It also appears in a typical context, as A is also following sort of a part of a prosodic score. So A is producing an utterance that ends in a low pitch, pausing, B does her thing, A starts up again. So we can treat backchanneling as a joint construction in the sense that it partially specifies the prosodic behavior of both speakers. Okay, the final key property of prosodic constructions is that they can be superimposed. So as we saw, the minor third construction can govern how I say a name, like Susan, and the late P construction can also make a contribution, as in Susan. If I combine the two, then I get a combined meaning. It may sound like this: Susan, I'm calling her and warning her, or suggesting something to her. We can also diagram that with sort of an intonation contours view, where you add the contours to get the resulting contour. Superposition works for F0 and all the other prosodic features, every element of every construction involved. We can explain this with a metaphor. If you've got a bunch of balloons, creating an utterance is like selecting a few balloons and presenting them to the other person. The balloons are kind of transparent, so you can see the words, and one prosodic construction and another construction, they're all combined in one sound package. All right, so summarizing, prosodic constructions have many interesting properties. Prosodic constructions serve many functions in language. In American English, here's a partial list. If you want to learn more about American English, there's a nice little paperback book, Prosodic Constructions, Prosodic Patterns in English Conversation by Nigel G. Ward. Yes, that's me. I wish that there were similar books for other languages, but not yet. So anyway, that wraps it up for our discussion of prosodic constructions and pragmatics. In the next lecture, we'll zoom out to consider the big picture of the three realms of prosody.